Everything is energy, and this includes the connection you share with the person occupying your thoughts in this very moment. This is not metaphor, this is not poetry, this is the fundamental architecture of reality itself, confirmed by quantum physics and understood by mystics for millennia before science gave it language. You and this person exist within an energetic field that responds to frequency, to vibration, to the invisible currents that flow between all conscious beings, and what happens in your energy field directly and immediately affects what manifests in theirs. The distance between you means nothing in the quantum realm where particles remain entangled across galaxies, responding to each other instantaneously, defying the limitations of space and time that your physical eyes perceive as absolute. Your connection operates on this same principle, woven through layers of reality that neuroscience is only beginning to map, and spiritual traditions have navigated with precision for thousands of years. When you shift your internal frequency, when you fundamentally alter the energetic signature you broadcast into the field connecting you both, you change the entire dynamic before a single word is spoken, before a text is sent, before any physical action occurs in the material world. They will feel this shift as a disturbance in the energetic equilibrium you have established together, sometimes consciously, more often unconsciously, through every interaction and every thought you have directed toward them. This is the mechanics of manifestation applied to human connection, the science-spiritual hybrid that explains why certain people can sense when you are thinking of them, why they appear in dreams the night before they reach out, why synchronicities cluster around significant relational shifts. You've been taught to see relationships as purely physical, emotional, psychological, but you are operating within a vibrational universe where consciousness itself shapes matter, where observation collapses infinite possibilities into singular outcomes, where your energy is the most powerful creative force available to you. Right energy is everything in the comments to align your conscious awareness with this frequency and activate the manifestation process that has already begun. The push-pull dynamic you have been trapped within operates according to fundamental energetic physics that govern attraction and repulsion across all levels of reality, from magnetic fields to human consciousness. When you chase, when you pursue with desperation and need, you create an energetic pressure that pushes them away with the same force you apply in pursuit, because energy flows naturally toward scarcity and away from abundance, toward what feels rare and valuable and away from what feels overwhelming and demanding. This is not personal rejection. This is impersonal physics playing out through human nervous systems that read energetic signatures faster than conscious thought, that respond to vibrational frequency before words are processed by the thinking mind. The masculine-feminine polarity principle explains this phenomenon with elegant precision, regardless of the genders involved in your specific connection, because masculine and feminine represent energetic qualities that all humans contain and express in varying measures. Masculine energy moves toward challenge, toward what retreats, toward what must be pursued and conquered, while feminine energy draws inward, attracts through magnetic presence, creates space that invites approach rather than demands it. When you chase, you occupy the masculine pursuing position and push them into the feminine retreat, creating the very distance you are desperately trying to close, amplifying the separation through the energetic mechanics of your own behavior. Your desperation registers in their nervous system as a frequency of lack, of incompleteness, of a void within you seeking external filling, and this triggers an instinctive withdrawal because all beings are wired to move toward wholeness and away from emptiness seeking to consume them. Energy flows toward those who embody sufficiency, who radiate fullness, who occupy their own center with such completeness that others are drawn into orbit around that gravitational pull. This is not manipulation. This is alignment with how energy actually moves through relational fields, how attraction genuinely operates beneath the stories and interpretations your thinking mind constructs to explain why they pulled away when you reached for them. The pattern will repeat endlessly until you understand the mechanics driving it, until you recognize that changing your energetic position changes their automatic response, that stepping out of pursuit allows them to step into it, that creating space through detachment invites them to fill that space through their own volition rather than your force. The moment you genuinely withdraw your pursuit. In energy, the moment you stop leaning forward into the connection and return to your own center, a vacuum forms in the energetic field between you, and nature abhors a vacuum with such intensity that it rushes to fill empty space with whatever force is available. This is not theory. This is observable physics applied to the invisible architecture of human bonding, the same principle that causes air to rush into a room when you open a sealed door, water to flow downward into empty vessels, energy to move always toward equilibrium and balance. When you have been the pursuer and you suddenly stop, you create an energetic void where your attention and need and focus previously filled the space, and they will feel this absence as a palpable shift in the field, as a disturbance in the relational ecosystem you built together. Their nervous system registers this withdrawal before their conscious mind understands what happened, before they can articulate why they suddenly feel unsettled, why you are appearing in their thoughts with unusual frequency, why they experience an unfamiliar urge to reach out when they have been comfortably distant for weeks or months. The energetic rebalancing happens automatically, below the threshold of conscious choice, as the field seeks to restore equilibrium after your withdrawal has destabilized the previous pattern. This is the mechanics behind why people return when you stop chasing them, why they sense your detachment and respond to it with renewed interest, why the very act of releasing them creates the conditions for their return. Carl Jung understood this principle when he observed that what we resist persists, that the energy we invest in pushing against something paradoxically strengthens its presence in our lives, while acceptance and release dissolve the tension that kept the dynamic locked in place. When you stop resisting their absence, when you cease fighting against the distance between you, the energetic charge that maintained the separation dissipates, and they are freed to move toward you without the repelling force of your desperate need pushing against them. The shift happens in layers, first in the invisible realm where energy reorganizes itself, then gradually manifesting in the physical world through changed behavior, unexpected contact, renewed attention from the person you convinced yourself had forgotten you completely. You will know the shift has occurred not because they immediately return, but because you stop obsessively monitoring whether they will return, because your internal frequency changes from anxious lack to grounded presence, because you begin living as though you are already whole regardless of their choices. You and this person function as energetic mirrors, reflecting each other's internal frequency back with such precision that what you perceive in them reveals more about your current vibrational state than about their actual essence. When you see them as distant, unavailable, rejecting, you are witnessing your own frequency of separation, your own belief in unworthiness, your own internal conviction that love must be earned through desperate pursuit rather than received as natural consequence of aligned energy. The external reflection always matches the internal transmission, always shows you what you are broadcasting into the field, whether you consciously intend that broadcast or not. This mirror principle operates through quantum entanglement, through the collective unconscious, through the invisible threads connecting all consciousness into a unified field where boundaries between self and other become permeable, and what you heal within yourself automatically shifts in the relational field you share with them. You cannot change them through force or manipulation or convincing. You cannot make them choose you through perfect words or strategic behavior, but you can change yourself, and that changes everything because the mirror can only reflect what stands before it. When you heal the wounds driving your desperate pursuit, when you integrate the shadow material creating your energetic lack, when you raise your frequency to the level of wholeness rather than incompleteness, they must respond differently because you have fundamentally altered what you are reflecting into their awareness. The person who no longer needs them to feel complete becomes infinitely more attractive than the person who needed them desperately. Because wholeness magnetizes while emptiness repels. Because self-sufficiency creates the polarity that attraction requires, while neediness collapses that polarity into sameness. What you see in them will continue reflecting your own internal state until you recognize that changing the reflection requires changing what stands before the mirror, that their behavior toward you cannot shift until your energetic signature shifts first. This is not placing responsibility on you for their choices. This is revealing the mechanics of how interconnected consciousness actually operates, how healing yourself creates ripples that touch everyone in your energetic field. The mirror shows you what needs healing, and when you do that healing work, the reflection transforms without their conscious participation in your process. You are connected to this person through layers that exist far deeper than physical proximity, through the collective unconscious that Carl Jung mapped as the substrate underlying all individual consciousness, the shared psychic ocean in which every human psyche swims whether aware of it or not. This connection operates through archetypal patterns, through symbolic language that bypasses rational thought, through the dream realm where your souls communicate in images and metaphors that your waking mind struggles to translate into linear meaning. They are receiving your energetic transmissions through channels that neuroscience cannot yet measure, through telepathic currents that materialism dismisses, but that mystics and quantum physicists both recognize as fundamental features of consciousness itself. The synchronicities appearing in your life, the repeated numbers and meaningful coincidences and unexpected reminders of this person. These are not random chaos, but rather coherent messages from the collective field informing you that the connection remains active in dimensions beyond the physical, that something is shifting in the invisible architecture underlying your shared reality. When you dream of them the night before they reach out, when you think of them seconds before their name appears on your screen, when you hear their favorite song in unlikely places during significant moments of your own transformation, you are experiencing the evidence of entanglement, proof that your consciousness and theirs remain woven together through threads that distance cannot sever. Subscribe to continue receiving advanced understanding of these spiritual mechanics, to navigate the invisible realms where your connection operates with far more power than it holds in the surface world of texts and conversations and physical meetings. Your souls speak in a language the ego cannot hear, in frequencies that bypass defensive structures and analytical minds, in symbols and sensations that carry more truth than any words exchanged in waking reality. This communication continues regardless of physical contact, regardless of whether you are speaking or silent, together or separated, because the connection exists in a dimension where time and space function differently than they do in the material realm your five senses perceive as the only reality. The collective unconscious holds your connection in potential, waiting for your individual consciousness to align with the frequency that collapses that potential into manifest form. Detachment does not mean you cease to care, does not require you to sever the love or destroy the connection or pretend you feel nothing when you feel everything with overwhelming intensity. Detachment means outcome independence, means you release your desperate grip on one specific manifestation and open yourself to infinite possibilities, means you stop strangling the connection with the chokehold of need, and instead hold it with the open palm of preference without requirement. This is the manifestation paradox that confuses those new to energetic mechanics, the counterintuitive truth that when you stop needing the outcome you claim to want, you align perfectly with receiving it, because need and desperation vibrate at the frequency of lack, while detachment and openness vibrate at the frequency of abundance. When you need them to return in order to feel whole, you broadcast incompleteness into the field, and the universe responds to that broadcast by delivering experiences that match your frequency of lack, perpetuating the very separation you are fighting to end. When you genuinely detach from whether they return or not, when you cultivate wholeness within yourself regardless of their choices, you broadcast completeness into the field, and the universe responds to that broadcast by delivering experiences that match your frequency of sufficiency, often including the return of the person you released in order to find yourself. The paradox resolves when you understand that you cannot manipulate this process through fake detachment, through pretending not to care while secretly obsessing, through spiritual bypassing that uses manifestation language to mask desperate attachment. True detachment emerges from genuine healing, from shadow integration, from the deep internal work that transforms your relationship with yourself, and therefore with everyone you encounter in the external world. You will know you have achieved real detachment, not when you successfully suppress your feelings or convince yourself you are indifferent, but when you can genuinely hold two truths simultaneously without internal conflict. You would welk. Own their return and you are complete without them. You love them deeply and you do not need them for wholeness. You hope they choose you and you trust your own path regardless of their choice. This is the frequency that magnetizes rather than repels, that allows rather than forces, that manifests through alignment rather than through manipulation of external circumstances. You will recognize that your internal frequency has fundamentally shifted not through external confirmations or their sudden return, but through internal markers that emerge naturally when you have released the desperate attachment that previously consumed your awareness and drained your creative energy. Peace arrives first, not the peace of resignation or defeat, but the peace of genuine acceptance, the quiet knowing that you are held by something larger than this single connection, that your worth does not depend on their recognition, that your future unfolds with purpose regardless of whether they occupy a place within it. Clarity follows, cutting through the obsessive mental loops and anxious projections that clouded your perception when you were trapped in attachment, revealing what you actually want versus what you convinced yourself you needed, showing you the difference between authentic desire and fear-driven compulsion. Your focus naturally redirects toward your own life, your own growth, your own creative expression and personal evolution, and you discover interests and passions and possibilities that were always available but invisible, while your attention remained fixated on someone whose attention you did not hold. The shift shows in how you move through your days, in the energy you bring to mundane tasks, in your willingness to make plans and commitments that do not revolve around keeping yourself available for their potential return. External confirmations begin appearing as your internal frequency stabilizes at this new level, synchronicities that signal you are aligned with the flow rather than fighting against it, opportunities that would never have appeared while you vibrated at the frequency of desperate lack. New people enter your awareness, not necessarily as romantic prospects, but as mirrors reflecting your elevated frequency back to you, showing you that you are seen and valued and desired by others even as you released your grip on the one person you convinced yourself was your only option. When you stop looking for them obsessively, when you cease scanning every notification for their name, when you release the hypervigilance that kept you in constant low-level anxiety, you paradoxically start seeing them everywhere, in references and reminders and synchronicities that arrive with such frequency they cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence. That is the signal, that is the evidence that your energy has shifted, and the field is reorganizing itself in response to your new frequency. The external world always lags behind internal transformation, but the signs appear to show you that the shift has occurred in the invisible realm and is now beginning its cascade into physical manifestation, into changed circumstances, into outcomes that match your elevated state. Their nervous system registers your energetic withdrawal before their conscious mind can construct an explanation, before they understand why you suddenly occupy their thoughts with unfamiliar intensity, why they feel unsettled in ways they cannot articulate to themselves or anyone else. The comfortable distance they maintained while you pursued them becomes uncomfortable the moment you stop pursuing, because your chasing energy was creating a familiar dynamic their psyche had organized itself around, and your withdrawal destabilizes that organization. creating internal disruption they experience as anxiety or curiosity or unexpected longing. For some, this manifests as panic, as the sudden recognition that they might be losing you permanently, that you are slipping beyond their reach in ways that physical distance never accomplished, while you remained energetically tethered to them through your attention and need. For others, your shifted frequency attracts them in entirely new ways, because the peace and wholeness you now embody registers as rare and valuable in a world saturated with desperate neediness and anxious attachment, because the person who no longer needs them carries a magnetic quality that the person who needed them desperately could never access. They sense your peace as a frequency they want to experience more closely, as an energy they want to move toward rather than away from, as a quality in you that calls to something in them that responds to groundedness and self-possession. The healed version of you becomes irresistible precisely because you are no longer trying to be irresistible, because you have stopped performing and strategizing and simply started being fully present in your own life. Share this energetic wisdom with someone who is waiting for their person to wake up, who needs to understand that the shift must happen within them before it can manifest externally. What they feel when you shift depends entirely on where they are in their own evolution, on what lessons they came into this connection to learn, on whether this relationship serves both of your highest paths or whether your detachment frees you both to find better aligned partners. The outcome cannot be forced or predicted, but the shift in their internal experience when you withdraw your pursuing energy is inevitable, is automatic, is the natural consequence of disturbing an established energetic equilibrium through your transformation. The steps to energetic alignment require you to redirect your focus from them to yourself, to invest the energy you have been pouring into monitoring their behavior, into cultivating your own wholeness, into healing the wounds that made their validation feel necessary for your sense of worth and lovability. You raise your frequency not through thinking about them differently, not through visualization techniques that keep them at the center of your awareness, but through engaging with what brings you genuine joy independent of their presence, through pursuing passions and interests and experiences that fulfill you without requiring their participation or approval. This is the mechanics of manifestation applied with precision, the recognition that you cannot manifest from lack, cannot call in wholeness while vibrating at the frequency of incompleteness. Become the person who does not need them, not through pretense or spiritual bypassing, but through genuine internal transformation that makes you whole regardless of whether they choose to be part of your journey. That version of you, the one who has integrated their shadow and healed their wounds and cultivated self-sufficiency, that version becomes irresistible to them if they are meant to be part of your path, and becomes equally attractive to someone even better aligned if they are not. The universe responds to frequency, not to desperate wanting, not to manipulative techniques disguised as spiritual practice, not to attachment masked in manifestation language. You cannot trick the field through surface-level positive thinking, while your deeper frequency broadcasts fear and lack and unworthiness, because consciousness operates in layers and the deepest layer determines what manifests in your external reality. The manifestation process demands that you do the uncomfortable work of facing why you believed you needed them, what wound their presence temporarily soothed without healing, what internal void you were asking them to fill instead of learning to fill it yourself. When you heal at that depth, when you transform the foundational frequency from which you operate, your external reality reorganizes itself to match your new internal state. And this reorganization includes how people respond to you, who enters your life, what opportunities present themselves. The version of you who no longer needs them is the version who either receives them back in healthier form or receives something better, and both outcomes lead to your expansion. Multiple timelines exist simultaneously in the quantum field, multiple versions of your future unfolding in parallel dimensions, and your energy, your frequency, your consciousness chooses which timeline collapses from potential into manifest reality through the vibrational signature you consistently embody. In one timeline, they return transformed, ready for the conscious relationship your soul has been calling toward, and you build something authentic and expansive together that serves both of your highest evolutions. In another timeline, someone better aligned appears, someone who matches your elevated frequency without the history and wounds and patterns that complicated your connection with this person. And you recognize that what you wanted was not them specifically, but the feeling you believed they could provide, the experience of being chosen and valued and met with reciprocal devotion. Both timelines lead to your happiness, both outcomes serve your growth, both possibilities honor the journey you have been walking through this period of uncertainty and transformation. You are not waiting to discover which timeline is correct. You are actively choosing through your energetic state, through the frequency you maintain, through the beliefs you hold about your worthiness and the nature of love, and what you deserve to receive from intimate partnership. The universe is responding to your frequency in every moment, collapsing infinite possibility into singular experience based on the dominant vibration you broadcast into the quantum field. Choose wisely means choose consciously, means recognize your power to shape reality through internal transformation rather than external manipulation, means understand that you are the creator of your experience and every Omen offers an opportunity to shift frequency and therefore shift trajectory. This person may return or they may not. This connection may fulfill its potential, or it may have already served its purpose by catalyzing your awakening to these deeper truths about energy and manifestation and your creative power. Either way, you are held, you are guided, you are moving toward your highest good even when the path looks nothing like what your limited human perspective expected or demanded. Trust the frequency, trust the shift, trust yourself.